was trying to kiss me and I was pulling away. And he pulled back and he said, "Come on, man, I heard you liked me." He was talking to me and he said some things that I don't recall. And I was up against the wall and I remember the coldness of the wall. And I remember his hands underneath my blouse and underneath my skirt and his fingers penetrating me as he was trying to kiss me and I was pulling away. And he pulled back and he said, "Come on, man, I heard you liked me." He was angry. It was like a tight voice. And he tended to smile when he was angry. And he isn't like the Uncle Joe like everybody talks about now. He was younger. He was my dad's age at that time and very strong. And he looked insulted and angry. And I remember feeling like I had done something wrong when he said that statement. And then I was standing there when he said, he was still near me. He said, pointed his finger and said, "You're nothing to me. You're nothing." And he walked away. I went through office protocol, which would be to go to your supervisor. And if you're not happy, you go to the next supervisor. And then the next one would be the chief of staff. And I did go up the chain verbally. And there were a couple of meetings, more than a couple actually, and there were people taking notes. I mean, I know they took notes, and some were more informal in the hallway with Marianne. And I was basically, after I had not served the drinks, that whole, episode, I was immediately told, like within a few days, by Marianne's assistant, that I dressed too provocatively, that I needed to, be less noticeable. And then Marianne got me in the hallway because I was annoyed by that. And she said, you want to just keep your head down and do as you're told if you want to last here. Went to them and told them I was uncomfortable. So I couched it in those terms. We didn't use the term sexual harassment a lot back then. And I remember saying I was uncomfortable and why, but nothing happened. And in fact, I was put in a windowless office and I had my duties taken away from me. I was given a desk audit. I was told to call one of my upper level supervisors, even if I went to the restroom. I was not to call or talk to other staffers or go to legislative hearings. I was told that I was given a month to find another job. And I sent out my resumes. And before I did that, because of this retaliation, I told my mother, who gave me the term retaliation and explained to me what was happening, and said to march in there and file a sexual harassment claim. And I said, and she used the word. And I said, well, you don't just march into their office. Like, that's not how this is done. So I had gone through that protocol. Then when that didn't work, I went to the outside, which was like they had a temporary office set up. So it was a Senate personnel or something like that. And I was given a clipboard. I filled out a form and talked about just the incident of the sexual harassment, feeling uncomfortable. And I was told at the window that somebody would call me back in, and they never did. I ended up looking for work, couldn't find it. I volunteered for the Robert F. Kennedy Memorial. I was fortunate enough to work in the VIP tent. came out in April. I started again. I had the intent to tell the whole history with Biden. But one of the first questions out of the reporter's mouth was, yeah, but it wasn't sexual, right? When he was talking about sexual harassment. And it shut me down. And that's not his fault. That's my responsibility, I know, to be brave and to be courageous and say the words. But it just put me off from being able to talk. And then when the story was hitting, there was so much blowback and smearing on social media. My story with them again and again, with the attorneys that they sent to me. And each time I was rejected by each attorney. One attorney said, we've met as a firm, and we have decided there is no legal strategy to safely tell your story because it's Joe Biden. And what I want to say is that's wrong. That's unconscionable. Anyone who has a claim or an assertion of something that's happened, of misconduct, should be able to speak freely without reprisal. And as you can see in the social media, I am being ripped apart. I've had my family and my friends contacted. I've had my bankruptcy posted. I have had the fact that I had a name change, which was sealed, and a sealed Social Security change for safety, because I'm a domestic violence survivor. And I've been dragged through it, but I don't care. I don't care about that. They can try to strip away everything about me, but they won't take my dignity. And they won't get my silence, because all that does is make me more determined. They started an email, but then I called Ellie asking her what was going on. It was taking some time, and I kept getting rejected by attorneys. And she said, I was going to just email you, but I have to tell you that our 501c3 status would be at risk. We can keep referring attorneys to you, but we cannot provide you funding. So then I wanted to escalate it to the director. And so we had a meeting with the director and the program manager. And I pushed back a little and I said, I can't help who did this. Where do I go? How do I get help? How do I get a women's organization to help me? And her response was, keep in communications with us. Our attorneys that have advised us our 501c3 could be at risk because it's the presidential election.
That says, we're going to take women seriously, we're going to err on the side of believing what they have to say. You have to apply that consistently. Or you can have a standard that says, we're going to apply a very critical eye to these allegations. We're going to try to find the weak points and point out the holes. Apply that consistently. But what we see here is Ryan publishes a story about a Kavanaugh accuser, and they're right on it with this very fluffy piece about how Dr. Ford has been dragged into the public spotlight, very favorable to her. On the other hand, when it's Tara Reade accusing Joe Biden, it takes 2.5 weeks, happens to come out after Bernie Sanders has dropped out of the race, drops on an Easter Sunday. They absolutely bury it in terms of their newsletter that they send out, trying to keep people from even reading it. And then the treatment of Tara is is so critical, and they find everything they can to provide exculpatory information for Joe Biden. Never happened that way with Brett Kavanaugh.